Hi, this is Sandy Shore, and you're listening to Making It with Terry Woolman. Enjoy.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to episode 148 of Making It with me, your host, Terry Woolman. You can find all of our episodes on entertalkmedia.com, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or just go to my website, terrywoolman.com/podcast. I really appreciate you joining us each week, and I encourage you to stay mindful and safe as we work together as a community to get through this global health pandemic. Also, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to smoothjazz.com and Blue Microphones for supporting our Beautiful Sound of Us video, which we created to empower and encourage everyone to vote in the presidential election. Your voice matters and it counts. If you haven't heard the song, you can find it on my youtube.com/Terry Woolman channel, and please take a moment to subscribe. I'd like to share with you my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. My guest today is founder CEO of smoothjazz.com, Sandy Shore. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She thought she could, and so she did. This California radio personality, concert event producer, and global music innovator has been on the radio since she was 15 years old, starting her career on John Steinbeck's Cannery in Monterey, California in 1979. She has worked her way up and down the coast to broadcast on many respected FM frequencies, including the Wave in Los Angeles and KKSF in San Francisco. Known in the music industry as a visionary in regards to internet broadcasting and music programming, Sandy has dedicated her talent to introducing the lifestyle vibe of contemporary jazz to millions around the world by keeping the sound fresh and warm. She believes that the genre is evolving and appealing to a new breed of listener who enjoys a diverse music mix. Shore describes it as a modern and robust blend that includes both the relevance of pop and the depth of jazz. Music is her life. Shore works personally with today's hottest jazz artists and recording labels, building successful branding by integrating marketing and social media. She also works closely with music producers, consulting on radio singles and developing new artists, all the while spearheading smoothjazz.com's event partnership with jazz festivals all over the world. Sandy Shore, welcome to Making It.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Sandy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. We've been talking about doing this for a while. You travel a lot, or have, and some of the times we have attempted to do this, you've been overseas or doing all the various things that you do. But it's different right now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's really different right now. It's a timeout. We're all having a timeout. And I think, at first that was shocking to so many of us. It was, this will just be a few weeks, a couple months. And then all of a sudden we have to get our head around the new normal. And then it became, wow, look at all the blessings in the new normal. It's okay to stop down for a minute. It's okay to be home. It's okay to rediscover the communities we live in, So, yeah, I mean, all those times we were talking about this wonderful podcast of yours, and I was, in Portugal at the Smooth Jazz Festival there, or Mallorca, or someplace fun and exotic. And this has been just another blessing for me to be able to stop down and catch up with you and all that you're doing. So I'm grateful for it. I'm not grateful for COVID. I'm not saying that, but I'm grateful for a timeout.
I am as well. It's a time that we have some choices on what we do in this period of our lives, and I'm doing everything I can to not waste it. I've had to figure out how to continue the podcast during COVID, figure out how to continue recording albums in isolation. But one of the beauties of that is the collaborations that have come about from people being what I called artist in residence now, all of us in our own residence. Yeah. There's been amazing access. Like I recorded a new song with Bob James, and that never would have happened if he was not at home. Yeah, because he's always traveling, as so many of our friends are. And as he had said when I was speaking with him, he's at home playing for the squirrels. So that led to an opportunity.
He's true. A couple of things I want to say before we get going too much further. First of all, you've done incredible things with this time. I was so inspired and touched by the vote video that you did. And we were delighted to feature that here on smoothjazz.com, as we could, to play our little part of getting it out. It was really stunning and important. And I know you've been keeping busy and you've been staying, you've really just, I can tell I've talked to you a number of times during this period, and you've got a lot of energy, and it seems to be rising. So that's fantastic. And then the other thing I want to say is Bob James is he's always been a personal hero of mine, just on every level. I mean, first through the music, because that's how I discovered him. And then just as a human being, and an artist, I absolutely adore him. And what he's turned this time into, at almost 80 years of age, which he will be on Christmas Day, is absolutely unbelievable to me. I should have expected it with Bob, but he continues to blow my mind with and he's got an album coming out. I don't know if you've seen his little teaser for that.
I have.
He's something else. And I'm so happy you guys partnered together. That's so fitting.
Me too. And you'll be one of the first people I share it with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for your support. I really, really, truly mean it, that it was a labor of not just love, but commitment and passion and a deep desire in our community. All these amazing people who came together to make this video with me, all remotely and safely. Mm-hmm. Everybody did it because they believe in our country and they believe in our democracy. And we were bipartisan about the message, but our passion was the same regardless of what side of the voting fence anybody was on. So again, thank you for your support on that. I'm very proud of it.
You should be. It was, Terry, it was an outstanding video regardless of the limitations. I mean, it would have been perfectly produced even if we weren't living in these times where you had to isolate, So I just loved it. But also, I think that everyone came out to vote. I mean, like you said, on both sides. It was quite a run for the roses, Thankfully, we hit the roses.
Well, yeah, I'm thrilled with the result and hopeful for our future. What is it like for you to be on the receiving end of an interview? I usually watch you hosting them.
It's really interesting to me. This is what I do with our world premieres over here at smoothjazz.com. The same thing, and I prepare for them, and I do an opener very similar to yours. And so for me, it was really surreal to be on the receiving end of that. And it was, it felt good, and it's nice for me to do this because I now feel the position that the artists are in when I talk with them. So it's fun. I have been interviewed, many times over the years, but never for a full show like this. No one has asked me to talk to them for an hour. On or off the air.
Right, even at home. Right.
Even at home, especially at home. Although I do talk Nathan East into an hour from time to time. He and I can get going. But no, this is very exciting for me. I really enjoy it. And I love the theme and the ideas behind, your podcast about the whole concept is absolutely accurate about attracting success, whatever that might be for each of us, and how to, how to be in the world, and definitely what we do is not necessarily who we are, but oftentimes it is. And mirroring people's success, when you look at artists such as yourself, or back to Bob James, I mean, I don't mind. We can make the whole hour about Bob if you want. But I think
this one's about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone like a Bob or Nathan or yourself, when you start to look at the people that you admire and that you enjoy being around, and you start to see how you attract certain things to your life, then you start to unlock these, these concepts and these ideas of how the universe really is in play, and how things are not. My favorite saying right now is, I have a lot of favorite sayings, but the one I'm using right now is, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And if you just decipher that one, just decode that, what does that mean? It means that if you're not having the greatest morning and you see something a little cynical or a little gnarly, and maybe somebody said something and that's not what they meant at all, but you happen to have heard it that way, or you saw it that way, and that creates a chain of events that maybe you weren't really looking for. And the opposite is true. If we see the world with more optimism and more enthusiasm and maybe a little bit more forgiveness of something, all of a sudden everything starts stacking up differently, And so that's just sort of my approach to life is, how do I want to see this? How do I want to take this? And what do I want to walk away with from this experience?
It's a beautiful way of looking at life, and there's a lot of clarity to what you just said. I agree with you. One of the things I want to do today is dedicate our conversation as an opportunity for our listeners to get to know you personally, and also learn about smoothjazz.com, and also to share your perspective and business tips for both up-and-coming artists and established artists, sort of a mini masterclass, because you have a front row seat to what makes things work and what makes things not work, for artists and also in music. So let me start with something that I mentioned in the intro, which is on your website. She thought she could, and so she did. Would you say that's been your mission statement, your personal mission statement in life?
Yeah. I was really fortunate to be raised by a woman who told me that. She told me whatever I wanted to do, whatever I applied myself to doing, I could do. And this was a really advanced way of thinking for this age of a woman. She was born in 1934, and my mom was timeless, so she had notions that were a little before her time, and she was raising a daughter, and I didn't really want to be, interrupted by gender or age. At the time, I was very young, and I didn't want to be stopped because of things that had not formally happened a lot in my chosen profession of radio. I mean, there were no women really on the air. And I was told many times that I would never be on the air full time because women just didn't do that. I could do weekends and maybe evenings. And then when I was on the air, I was told never to play women artists back to back. Never do that. And so I have had an interesting beginning to this career, and I do think that has been my mantra, because if I was ever held back for reasons that are absurd today, like being female, I didn't pay attention to it, and that was my choice. I just didn't pay attention to it. It doesn't mean that if somebody didn't hire me because I was a woman and they wanted a male, of course you pay attention to that because you don't get the job, but you just keep trying, you just keep trying, because that to me was just it just wasn't something that was going to stop me. And I do think that was a good mantra for me. Yeah, I did it because I thought I could. And eventually you keep knocking on enough doors, right? And somebody's going to see you. Somebody's going to get it. Yeah. And I liked what you just said about my front row seat to the industry. I am a radio artist. That's how I see myself. I wanted to get into radio because I loved music, not because I loved the way I sounded. In fact, I was horrible at 15. It was very sinusy, and you and I were talking about vocal exercises before we started the podcast here, and I still do those, and I did learn over time how to, work my vocal cords, and where to, how to work like a vocalist. You do not want to hear me sing.
Have you studied voice and singing and acting, or do you just sort of a natural gift and then you've learned to understand the mechanism of speaking?
I think I have a natural passion. I just wanted to play music on the radio. And who I grew up listening to were, DJs, male DJs, because they didn't have women until the 80s, till I was doing it.
Right.
So I just thought, I didn't see the gender thing, just like, I don't see a color thing and I don't see an age thing. And I don't think I don't think we need to, because there's something to be gained from every one of us. We all have some texture to bring. So I was inspired by the DJs I was listening to, and I wanted to play the music. And believe it or not, technically, I was drawn to the segues, the music mixing. That's what really lit me up, and how to build a set. And I've been fortunate enough to be on radio stations over the years because I started early enough. I was young enough to where I could play vinyl at the beginning. And slip cue records and match beats or match, concepts and songs and, all that stuff. Really, that was what was floating my boat back in the day. So the voice was something I had to just learn over time. And I studied, where I did take classes, yes. And I did I was fortunate enough to go to a school that was attached to my high school when I was young, that was offering radio acting and theater and all of that. I'm a horrible actress, and I'm not being self-deprecating, because I'm not that way. I can't act and I don't sing, and I love to sing, but I can't really. If it's an old song and I got the melody stuck in my head deep enough, I can stay on tune. But I really struggle with that, Terry. In fact, we should talk sometime and. Maybe you can hook me up with somebody. Sure,
absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I don't think I'm tone deaf, but I don't do it well. I think the vocal part has come over time, and I've really studied listening to a lot of people I'm inspired by.
Did your mom bring you up as a single parent?
I had kind of an interesting childhood, because my sister's 9 years older than me. So when I was really little, there was a foursome to our family. My father was still there. My mother and my sister was, 9 and 8.5, 9. So it was an interesting first few years where I thought I had a foursome family, which was fantastic, Yeah. And before I knew it, my dad was leaving, because it was the 70s, and that's what dads did, right? Mm-hmm. So
Mine did too.
Yeah. See, it's a byproduct of our generation. So my dad left with, another family, and then my sister grew up and had the gall to leave and start her life. So I was
Although you were still very close with your sister.
I'm very close with her still, yes. And she has a wonderful family I'm really attached to. So we did, my mom and I did have just each other from about, I would say, maybe 10 or so on. Mm-hmm. And she used to say that we were growing up together.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So she did everything. She used to roller skate, she would roller skate backwards. So everything I could do, she could do better, but she didn't really, she didn't rub that in my face or anything. She was a fun mom.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like a wonderful mom, very supportive and a forward thinker like yourself. It definitely, the apple didn't fall far from the tree on that. And by the way, speaking of dads, both of our dads did leave. My dad didn't really leave us. He left my mom. So I still was fortunate to have him in my life until I was 17 when he died in an accident. So
yeah.
I feel fortunate. Yeah, so he definitely made his mark on me. Both my parents did.
And I think that's safe to say too. I mean, my dad left. I mean, there was the marriage, and I'm being kind of faux bitter, because I'm completely over that. And my father asked for my forgiveness, and I gladly gave it to him.
Good.
We don't know we wouldn't know what they were going through back then. And I do believe we're all just trying our best, during these times. So, that I just think that was a weird time to grow up when all of a sudden divorce became the thing to do, and it was hard on us kids. I mean, it was for me anyway.
Did it make you feel like you might never have a long relationship, personal relationship, that wasn't something you wanted, or afraid that it might not be achievable?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it does set some sort of, puts a little seed in your brain as a child. Like, I suppose the line could be marriage doesn't work. You might get that message as a child. But, we come to learn, and, in the event that younger folks are listening, life gets to be anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, just because, our parents did one thing, it certainly doesn't mean we have to follow in those exact footsteps. You can learn from that. Yeah. Yes, I did think that. Yeah. And I think that it is, it's a sad thing that can happen to children of divorce, that they do wonder, is this what it is,
Well, the beauty is, as we get older and wiser, we have the opportunity to get over our fear and create our lives the way we envision it, with the partners.
Exactly.
We bring in our new friends and family and extended family, and you've done a great job of that as well.
I appreciate that. I think my mom used to love to be happy, and I didn't really, she used to say, smile to fool your heart. She would tell me that, and she loved laughing more than anything. And so, and I think that's me too, I feel like, I'm happier smiling. I feel, I will always look for somebody who's going to make me laugh over almost anything, or, I'm very cerebrally oriented when it comes to, spending my free time with friends and people. And that includes wit. I love, razor sharp wit and what I watch on television. It all comes, I'm into foreign intrigue. I really appreciate that part of life, the brainier part of life, it speaks to me without getting too deep into, I'm not going to lie and act like I'm all into, science and history. And although that is fascinating, but I'm talking about topical stuff,
Mm-hmm.
That's going on. So yeah. And I do think you can find it, if you can find yourself smiling, several times a day, whether you're working or talking to someone on the phone regarding work or whatever. What a great thing. And I do love my life and my job because I'm listening to music a lot. My good problems are there's so much music to listen to, I can't get through it in a day. And then I have wonderful conversations with artists on the phone. Most days I'm on the phone talking to artists about their music, what their plans are. And so that front row seat you were talking about, at this point, having done this for so long, I can definitely tell you some things that I see, some pitfalls I see, and I try to help folks avoid, and some really smart moves that people make, whether they're planning on it or not. It's fascinating to see who goes which direction with their music,
We'll get back to talking about you personally since you brought that up right now. What are some great things that people do that get your attention, both musically and also from a branding or business perspective, a communications, relationship perspective? And what are a couple of the things that you see or hear that don't work for people? What gets your attention?
The number one thing that gets my attention is somebody who is really, integral to their own ideas for music. So, in other words, if they're inspired by smooth jazz, we'll just use this as an example because that's the world I'm living in. And they're also inspired by pop music. So let's just say they've taken some production values of a Justin Bieber tune, and they've added in some incredible original guitar, melodies that they've created, and maybe even some amazing live percussion. They decided not to sample that, but they did some other cool sampling. And the next thing you know, they've got some song that I've never really heard put together that way, and I'll listen and I'll go, whoa, that was like 3.5 minutes of bliss. Who is this person? And then I'll end up, adding, I'll call them. Usually I'll call them if I'm really blown away. I'll call them and I'll end up saying, okay, you're amazing. Who are you? How old are you? And sometimes they're really young, and other times they've been around forever and ever, and they just found the right formula. And so that's the number one thing I would say is somebody doing stuff that is unique and but integral to who they are. Because the flip side of that very coin is somebody trying to be somebody else. And next thing you know, they're making a song that is either too tall for them or outside their depth, or they've lost the melody entirely. And let's be honest, in this genre, melody is everything. And I'll hear too many notes and look, I can play, Mm-hmm. And Nathan will tell you this. We love this conversation, he and I. And of course, the notes you don't play are everything,
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Double-edged sword right there. Uniqueness and then too many notes and stuff.
Some of my favorite moments in songs that I love, whether I wrote and arranged and produced them or my peers, in any genre, is the silence. I get so excited when I hear a space in a song. To me, that's as big of a hook as the hook.
Absolutely.
And of course, I agree with you about the importance of melody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I think sometimes people don't realize this. I think that's the most shocking thing, and I'm going to be really candid. What shocks me the most is that I don't mind, and I'm certainly not referring to any one person in particular, because at this point, I could just tell you that every now and then this happens. I'll get a song and I'll think, man, it made it all the way to the MP3 conversion and into my inbox. And it's not a song. It's literally not a song. And I'm not trashing it because it's not horrible musicianship. It's nothing like that. I wonder what happened to the melody, or I wonder if they don't listen to the music that they're submitting to. Do they not listen to the genre? Have they not found a radio station that they like, that they could say, I'm a big fan of this sound. I want to make a song like this. But instead, it's something that has way too many notes, and it's just nothing conventional about it, because I do think a good song has a convention to it on some level. I mean, sure, break a rule or two, that's fine. But it does have a nice hook, and it has a nice chorus, and maybe a killer bridge, And sometimes these songs come in and they're incredibly disjointed. And I would ask you a question. How do you feel as an artist that now everybody has access to GarageBand and Pro Tools and synth this and synth that? I mean, everybody's making music these days. What do you think of that?
I think it's fantastic, and I hate it. It's both. And for the reason that I encourage anybody to be artistic and to express themselves. The freeway has gotten very crowded. It's like rush hour all the time. And part of it is that I really believe in having a high bar for whatever it is that you attempt to do in life. And the very fact that people can make music just because they have a computer and a drum loop and access to iTunes. iTunes is the major distributor, or CD Baby or TuneCore, all the various ways that people get their music out. They're essentially the record labels now. They're not discerning in any way as to whose music they'll release. And there's something really wonderful and positive about that. I love that anybody can make a record, but I also find that it has dumbed down the music industry. In other words, as an artist, if I want to find out something about publishing, or there's, something happened in iTunes or Spotify, did something incorrectly, made an error, it's impossible to get anybody on the phone now to fix a simple problem.
That's true.
Or to even have a conversation with somebody, because it's been dumbed down to the lowest denominator of people not knowing very much about music or the music business. So it kind of can be more draining, as an artist, when you just try to handle a piece of business.
That's a really good point. That opens another chapter. And that is, it does, though. Think about it. Like, I have a client now who is really skilled, and I'll just leave names out, other than Bob James, but, or Nathan.
Yeah,
no,
of course.
But I have a client who's been around a long time, and he had a solo career, and then he added a band name to his name. And so I would say in total, maybe somewhere around a dozen albums and success at radio. And Spotify is not letting him put all of his collection in one area, because they see it as two. And who can he talk to over there? Nobody. And then everybody thinks that I'm the Shell answer woman and I can get through to Spotify, but I certainly can't, and I don't know. I don't know why they do that, And it is unfortunate. You're right, because while there are so many good things about today's technology, and I am a huge fan and proponent for this industry right now, I do feel I saw it coming, based on how we were handling things 20 years ago. I knew it was going to be a lot more accessible to the people, but I really wish there was a way that artists had a hotline or some direct approach, that they could go in and say, I need my music combined. I don't want this song on there, or whatever,
Yeah.
rather than this long, lengthy process of opening a case.
Absolutely. Even a more simple example of that, and it's a perfect example. Spotify right now, I put a new album out recently, a few months ago, that was on the Grammy ballot called Cassini's Last Dance. And was a little bit different for me. It falls more in the new age category, all acoustic music. And Spotify, for whatever reason, put it out as a new artist. And I still have not been able to get them just to merge it. It's not even a different name. It's still me. But they created a whole new tab and people... Yeah, and it's the simplest of things to fix. And it's taken 3 months already. They haven't fixed it yet. So exactly.
Maybe somebody listening, Terry, can get in touch with you, and then you forward that email to me.
I will. I'll share that information with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a good point.
But on a musical level, to your question about how do I feel, about anybody being able to make an album and put it out. The cool part of it, I just refer back to your description about contemporary jazz right now. I'm not generally a fan of labeling music, although I understand the importance and the value for marketing. But I also love that smooth jazz, contemporary jazz has broadened. It's become more of a mashup of styles. And I think that's really exciting. And in your description that the blend includes both the relevance of pop and the depth of jazz. I love your description because it so clearly defines my personal approach to creating music. So thank you for saying it so clearly, because oftentimes I don't know how to describe my music when I'm asked in an interview. And I think it's a great description. The relevance of pop. I consider myself a pop musician with a jazz background.
Exactly.
It's like you were in my head when I read that.
That's cool. Well, that's how I like to listen to music. I mean, I listen to all kinds of music. Like, I'm a big fan of Post Malone, and I have no problem saying that. That's a melody right there. That song of his, Circles, or, and there's something about his sound. I remember hearing that first song years ago, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but something about his production really lured me in. It's not so much necessarily the lyrics, I may or may not be able to identify with an 18-year-old boy, I don't, although some days, when you're out fighting the hordes at Whole Foods.
Right.
I might feel something, but no, honestly, I really love his style and his approach. And I think that is the perfect example of what music is doing today in and out of smooth jazz, and why I love Spotify and why I love iTunes as a music fan is that I can literally create a playlist all over the place. I can add smooth jazz, contemporary jazz. Nobody really cares about labels anymore. And honestly, the millennials, the way they think is probably, it's not unfamiliar to me because that's how I always was as a kid. I loved all kinds of music. I grew up listening to jazz because my dad played it all the time, and my mom was a pianist, and I should have said that. My mom was a musician, and she played all the time, every day, and Nat King Cole, just floated through our house, and standard pop songs and sometimes country. She was a huge fan of Patsy Cline, and so I was around music all of the time. And of course, the 70s again, that's when the era of bubblegum and melody, and I was super attracted to that. So, and then as I grew older and really kind of fell into jazz, I was I really wanted to be a pop DJ, for a top 40 station. That was kind of what I thought it was going to be, my deal. And, I was going to be like one of those first women to do top 40 radio and talk really, really fast and, over the intros of the songs and as we used to say, post the vocals, But I fell into jazz. I grew up in Monterey, so home of the United States' oldest jazz festival is. Yeah, and that is just submersive to a human being, whether you get it or not, or you play an instrument or not. Just floating around the festival every year, it changes you. It becomes part of your character, and I think that started to get inside my blood. And then I started at the Wave in LA in the late 80s, and the world opened up to me. It wasn't just jazz, by the way. It was New Age and, it was all that crazy stuff, Shadow Facts and stuff I'd never heard before. Those wonderful labels, Private Music and Yanni came out then.
Yeah.
And that was truly instrumental pop,
It was a great time in radio. We both started then. My first album was 1988. This was when it came out on the Wave and around the country and around the world. But the thing is, that's when DJs, it's kind of full circle for you. That's when program directors and DJs and radio people chose the music that they liked and played what was good in their mind, period.
I played your music on the Wave.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for making it. But yeah, those were great. Those are great times. But, and again, just full transparency, I was hoping that I would be hired on like back then KKHR or one of those big, KISS FM. That's really where I thought I belonged. And then I met John Sebastian, who was the first programmer of the Wave, and he had these wonderful kind of eclectic ideas to create a softer blend of music that was predominantly instrumental with some matching vocals. He used to play Tracy Chapman's music in the mix. We used to play Everything But the Girl and Julia Fordham, and it was. And then I missed the part of LA because I grew up here. I'm from Santa Monica originally, but I did grow up in the Monterey Bay area, which is just about 5 hours north of Los Angeles. But I ended up back there for radio. And I missed those days of KNX-FM. Now, I'm not sure are you from Los Angeles?
No, born and raised in Miami, but I remember KNX when I moved out here.
That was a real artful radio station. I've heard audition tapes of it, and I was married to somebody who was really a big KNX-FM fan, and he had recorded hours and hours of it, real radio guy. And so I fell in love after the demise of KNX-FM, but it inspired me because radio was always fascinating to me. The idea that someone was talking to me and intimate with me and playing my favorite music, and, you rarely saw me without a transistor radio in my hand, which ironically is about the size of an iPhone Max. So, and you rarely see me without that in my hand. But right. I grew up, at 8 with a little thing in my ear, listening to the local Monterey, top 40 station. And then I realized, man, radio is such an art form with the music and the talking, the intimacy. You're not bothered by the visuals. You don't care what somebody's hair looks like at that moment, or that doesn't matter because you created the image of the voice. What do they look? It doesn't matter what they look like. You can make them up in your head, Well, that's the word, the intimacy that I love about radio and about how you are describing it. Because although even your network, you reach out to over 20 million people around the world. That's your listenership. But it's still a very intimate one-on-one experience and conversation. You are speaking to a single person. That's what I get from you when I hear you on the radio, and from any experienced radio host. I feel like they're talking to me. I feel like you're speaking to me. You're describing what you love about the song, about the artist. You personalize it, and it's extremely intimate for basically a way of getting information out broadly around the world. It's doing two things at the same time. You are speaking to the planet, and you are connecting directly with one human being. Thank you for saying that, because that is the difference. When people ask me, they don't know what we do. They, if they hear that, I'm with smoothjazz.com, that's my company. What is that? Are you on Pandora? Are you on Watercolors? No, we're our own radio station, and the difference between smoothjazz.com and, let's say, Pandora or Spotify or Apple, those are like a genome project. You can make your own playlist, and then it gathers information about you. It becomes intuitive. Terry likes to listen to this artist, so Terry might also like that artist, because they've somehow figured out through algorithms the beats you're choosing and the melodies and the vocal, stylings or whatever. So what we do over here, we add a human touch to that. So one thing that people may not know about me, I try to tell this is, to whomever's listening, I literally will listen to every song that comes through. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to listen to it in 10 days and give you my feedback. Sometimes, and I hate to say it, but it's true because I'm one person. It can take 2 or 3 months for me to get to a song, but I will always listen, and I will always get back to you if it's something that is, amazing and I need to work with. And I also hear amazing on different levels, because amazing doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most brilliant musician on the planet and you play the bass like no one I've ever heard. It might mean, my gosh, the inspiration, the concept of your song, the vulnerability you brought to this. While you might not be the most experienced recording artist I've ever heard, there's something there that is so moving. I want to feature this, So I listen to everything that comes in, and I do want to get that out to people. And I think that you're always welcome to send me stuff and just be a little bit patient here. My email is sandy@smoothjazz.com with a Y. So please feel free to send me your new music. And also the other part of smooth jazz that I feel that we do here that's different than other outlets is that is a very broad term, smooth jazz. It is not some people don't know this because there are some folks out there that deem themselves the smooth jazz police, and they will tell me that something is not smooth jazz. But smooth jazz is not really, it's not a format. It's an umbrella term. And it incorporates pop and jazz and R&B and neo soul and chill out music and lounge stuff and even sometimes hip hop,
I've heard it described as a lifestyle, not just a form of music. In the same way that so is Apple. Somebody told me one time that Apple doesn't sell computers, they sell a lifestyle. That's why every time a new phone comes out, there's people standing in line outside the Apple store with the last version of the iPhone, getting ready to buy the new, and it's in Apple. I see that as a really brilliant business model, but I don't really connect with it. However, in the lifestyle of smooth jazz and the community that has grown with fans and artists, I think it's really kind of cool. I think it's really just kind of cool that you've been promoting concerts for a long time as well and interfacing with other festivals, but you've got your own festival that you do in Monterey every year.
Yeah, you don't mean the Monterey Jazz Festival?
No, I'm talking about...
that's not mine.
No, I'm talking about the one that you do with Nathan East as the music director. Mm-hmm. And you understand it better than anybody for 2 reasons. One, you produce events like that yourself, and also you are invited to events like that around the world. We've done jazz cruises together. We've been on the same cruises and traveled the world. And the community is one of my favorite parts of what the genre has become.
About 10 years ago, I realized I'd been spending way too much time at my desk and inventing. And I have a small team here at smoothjazz.com that is as relentless as I am. We get a good idea and we're like a dog with a bone. We're not going to drop the bone until we
And by the way, may I interject? It might be a small team, but they are a global team. You've got team members that are not just in Monterey where you're based, but they're all over the world. You've got team members in Europe, and I think that's probably a big part of the success of what you do.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I choose people to work with that may or may not have experience in radio, because this isn't just radio. The concept for smoothjazz.com back in the day when I was, dreaming it up was, my God, we could have a radio station with visuals that people could actually interact with. They could push on buttons. There could be color. There could be, things that pop up. They could go from the front page to all kinds of different things. And so, that's the nature of my company is not just radio. But so I didn't want to try to hire just radio people. I think actually outside of myself, I might be the only radio, industry person on the team. I have a couple of graphic artists. Both are musicians, actually, as well. We've got people working with us in Ireland, in England. We did our jingles in Milan. In fact, we're going to start doing more in Budapest. And a lot of the people that I work with come to me through the music industry, or they just were really savvy about, marketing in general as a concept, because marketing, again, that is a big blanket word, but I feel like what we do over here at smoothjazz.com is marketing and education. And this week, as a matter of fact, we're actually going to launch a whole new section to the website called EDU, because we've had time during COVID to sit down and make a list of all of the questions that artists ask us every day. Same questions, whether they've been making music for 40 years or 4 years. They call and they ask us the same thing, and then they all often fall for the same in the same pitfalls. They think Billboard is the Mecca. We must get on Billboard. Well, guess what? Very few smooth jazz artists are going to be on Billboard's top 100. That's the thing that Billboard's known for, the Hot 100. If you're on the Hot 100, then, you're on a yacht somewhere too, right? Because that's what that's equivalent to. But the smooth jazz Billboard chart is only 13 radio stations. Their panel is comprised of 13 FM stations in the United States and Sirius XM watercolors. Yeah. So you have 14 on the panel.
That's amazing. Because it has shrunk. It used to be bigger.
Well, it did, but, there used to be more FMs.
Right, and there were more reporting stations back then. It has changed. But it's interesting to hear you say that, because you also, you have charts as well.
And I do want to just bridge that. I do, Terry. I want to bridge over to these other charts, but there are more reporting stations. The format is listened to, as most music formats are listened to digitally now. Instead of FM, there's a thing called DB. It exists. It's real. Like smoothjazz.com's call letters are KJAZDB. It's official. We own those. And that is a digital broadcaster. So the landscape of this genre and so many other music formats have gone online, because FM radio is no longer the preference in listening for the public. So smoothjazz.com has 80 reporting radio stations to our chart, 80 around the world. We don't limit it to FM in the United States. We are open. So that means we have Sirius XM watercolors. We have all of the Billboard reporting stations. Of course, we would take those. And we have huge stations in London and stations online, Sublime FM in the Netherlands, I believe they're in the Netherlands. So, we have 80. So we don't understand why artists are so gravitated to, I know that Billboard is a big brand. It's a big name. It's like Dolce & Gabbana, but for smooth jazz, it's not a mecca, and so right. If 13 stations are playing you and you got to top 5, of course, congratulations, but that is just the beginning. So these are the things we're going to start educating artists on the website, and I hope you'll enjoy reading it too, because we've put hundreds of hours into adding graphs and information and letting artists know in particular what is what out there? What is what? And if you're going to pay good money to hire a radio promoter, what do you need to know about that? You do need to know that Billboard only has 13 FM stations, and some of them might be college. Not that that's bad, but it's not commercial. When you hire a promoter, is their list current? Because radio stations change every month. Have they updated that list? Have you gotten, the right promoter? So we're helping artists vet their promoters, how to market, how to do more than just social media, So we're pretty excited here that we've taken, this opportunity during COVID, when we would never have time because we would be out at those festivals. And we've launched an entire section for people to bring themselves up to speed.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. That's fantastic. I can't wait to check it out. Because what you're doing is you're empowering artists, both up and coming artists and seasoned artists like myself, because the ever-changing landscape of the music business that we're in changes daily. Every time we turn around, there's a new way that you need to have to sign up to collect digital royalties. I mean, certainly Sound Exchange is what people need to register their music with. And that's one of the things that you educate your artist about. And it's almost like it's these secret societies that nobody gets to hear about, and they're wondering why they're not getting paid. So thank you for sharing information with the music community. I think it's so important. It really does empower people, and it's really important for artists, whether they're a major label artist or an independent artist, to be educated and informed.
Absolutely. And, we don't have unlimited hours in a day. And musicians are, creating, they're writing, they're producing, and a lot of professional musicians that's all they do, such as yourself. It's not just your music. You might be playing on other people's projects. You might be producing a project. You might be writing a soundtrack, so you don't have time to go and say, well, where did the cheese move? What? There's only 13 stations on Billboard. Since when? And then I'll get these phone calls from people, and they'll say, I don't care about internet radio. I only care about FM. And I don't know what to say to that, because guess what? The music isn't being played on FM. Mm-hmm. It's just not. So, and that's our job over here. We've come to realize it's not just our job to talk to you about, hey, we can help get your music heard and listened to, and then connect with the community of fans. It's not just me talking to you about that. I need to also tell you why, you need to do this, and the other things that have changed over the last 24 months. It's like my accountant. When I talk to the accountant, she's the one learning all the tax laws, because one, I'm not interested, and two, I don't have time. So, that it's kind of our job to let artists know what's going on.
I think it's also important.
That's how I see it.
I agree with you. And it's a really healthy and generous outlook, or perspective. And, one of the things that I think people need to realize, I want people to realize that an artist, is that they don't have to engage you and your company and all the access to this information and marketing and branding opportunities in order to be played on your network. It's just something more that you offer, and I think it's an important distinction.
It's exactly right. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, because people think that's what we're all about. Some people think that, and that's not true. We play music from people that you've never heard of and famous artists, and not everyone works with us.
Right.
Only the smart ones. We don't. We're not limited to that.
Let me ask you something. You founded smoothjazz.com in 1995, and it was originally to be used as a ticket outlet for your Sandy Shore productions in Monterey. But it took 5 years before the station actually launched. You clearly were ahead of the curve in thinking about internet radio. It wasn't something that people were really doing yet. You saw it as being the future. But I'm curious what happened in those 5 years that you needed to do to really prepare from the idea that you wanted to actually create a company and to launching.
Well, it wasn't us. We were waiting for technology. Two very important things happened. One, encryption had not been invented yet for those tickets. So this is hilarious. People would have to print out the form, and they would fill it out with a pen, and they'd put it in the mail to us with a check for their concert tickets back in the early 90s, or mid-90s. And the other thing we were waiting for was streaming. You might remember it was about 97 when you could go get some audio off the internet. Oh my gosh, I can download a 30-second radio commercial in 7 minutes. And because there was no streaming. So we literally had to wait, and we followed the build it and they will come philosophy. And that was because I was encouraged to do that by a fellow radio employee that I worked with over in Santa Cruz, a really amazing station called KPIG Radio. They are famous and infamous. They are one of the most adventurous stations I've ever had the pleasure of working with. It would be called Americana or AAA radio. But this guy, Bill Goldsmith, is truly a technical visionary. And he said, Sandy, build your radio station as if you're going live tomorrow. Get all your music together, get your liners together, get your concept together, get your clocks together, and just create it because it's coming. We don't know when. And then AOL actually was the first company. It was bought Winamp, if you remember that name.
I do.
And they created this massive server that was offering stations like ours an opportunity to get grandfathered in for bandwidth because they wanted to test a mega server. They were the first ones to really launch what is now known as internet radio. So smoothjazz.com was one of 3 stations on a day in early March 2000 that launched without an FM frequency stick. We were just literally broadcasting, untethered on the internet. And it was us, smoothjazz.com. It was Bill Goldsmith's Radio Paradise, which is very famous, and another company from the East Coast, and I can't recall the name right now, but there were 3 of us, and we just took off. And then the surprising thing was Smooth Jazz went all the way up to the charts of radio broadcasting online.
And you were the first woman-owned network on internet radio. Since it was a brave new world and uncharted territory, was being a woman of value? Did that help you in any way? Was there some sort of cachet to that, or was it just didn't really matter at that point?
I always think being a woman is helpful because we see other sides of things, to industries that were predominantly male. Yeah. I'm not saying we see better sides, but we see other things, But I wouldn't say that it was, it wasn't something that, leveraged us in any way. We're still, there's still that mentality in the music industry, and even a little bit today, but back then, especially, this was 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was interesting. We used to, there's an Ani DeFranco song we used to quote the lyric of that was, they're going to want to know how we got in and they're going to want to know how we plan to get out. And so we used to love quoting that lyric. But honestly, Terry, just to go back to the beginning of the conversation, I never really see my life or the decisions I make as male or female. I just see it as me. And, but yeah, I wouldn't say there was any cachet to it. It's cool to say that, though. We're the first women-owned and operated internet radio station.
I would imagine you are as proud of that as you are in just being an innovator in radio.
Yes.
You are an innovator.
I am proud of that. Yeah. I could also say I'm the first blonde internet owner on radio. But
yes, you could.
No, I think it's a cool thing to say. It's a cool thing to say, but I'm mostly proud of the innovation. That's what I'm trying to say. Mostly proud of what we've done, regardless of anything else.
So let's talk about Barack Obama following you on Twitter. How cool is that?
It's amazing. I don't know how it happened. I have no idea how that happened, but I'm super honored by that.
I had the opportunity to play for him one time and got to meet him, which was an absolute thrill. And he straight out told me how much he is a music fan. So it doesn't surprise me that he would be following you. I think it's great.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I discovered that one day. This was when he was president. And I was like, does that say follows you? And I just couldn't get over that. So I kept staring at it and kind of trying to figure out if I was reading it right. And I said, well, I better start following him then. No, I'm kidding. I already followed him. But yes. No, I think it must be the music, the passion, that he has for music. And I just don't want to bring it to his attention somehow because I don't want him to unfollow me.
Right.
No, I'm honored.
I can understand why. I want to share a couple of personal things about you that I think are really a big part of who you are. One is that you used to play professional tennis, that it's actually something It's a direction that you almost went into. At age 16, you had a 77 mile per hour serve, which I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of. Are you back to playing tennis? I know that you and I also share that we are genetically modified with both having had hip replacements. How are you doing with that?
Yes. I'm doing great with that. Thank you. And thank you so much for your support during all of that, because it was the days before surgery are quite terrifying.
They are.
No, I'm doing really well with it. I couldn't be happier, to have the mobility I have now. And think about the serve that at 77 miles an hour back when the rackets weighed about 70 pounds, so I would have loved to have played, when I was, older and technology changed, but I chose to be in radio, and that got really busy for me. I loved it, Terry. It was one of those things I just took to. I just could play. I picked up a racket. Again, I think I got that from my mom because she loved to play. And I didn't start playing until I was about 13 or 14, and I just loved it. And I started entering in tournaments, and I was actually endorsed by Yamaha. They used to give me all of their the rackets and stuff. And I did think about doing it. It's just that with that hip, which was always a childhood dilemma for me, as I told you, my issue didn't come later in life. It started when I was about 8 or 9.
Right. You've had physical challenges your whole life.
I have, yeah. And I was slower than I would have liked to have been as a tennis player, which I think made me smarter because, tennis is a game of strategy as much as it is of physical power. So, placement of your body and the racket and the ball. So, I think it made me smart. Tennis made me very, very smart because I couldn't move as fast as some, so I had to figure out the angles. So it was a very good thing for me in my childhood. Kind of got me up and over that whole divorce thing we talked about early on.
Well, not only are you still a healthy, active person, but you are healthier and active in ways that you've never been in your life because of this hip surgery. And it is one of the reasons that we have been more in touch personally as friends, over the last few months, because I was fortunate that I had a couple of people reach out to me as well, because I was terrified before my hip replacement, which was basically from a lifetime of being physically active and exercising and age and wear and tear. And I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you and happy for you that you have been so diligent and positive in your recovery. It's really shows what you're made of.
It means so much to me that you've been there in my corner all along with, little notes and texts and noticing, over the last 4 years, which is really where I started digging in, because I knew if I wanted to live any kind of quality life, I was going to have to get this hip fixed. And then I needed to lose weight to get to that point where I felt comfortable with the surgery. So I've spent the last 4 years, modifying my body.
Well, that's the next part of the conversation. I mean, I'm so impressed with your focus. That was not an easy feat either. You lost a lot of weight. You really were very conscious and diligent about not just losing weight, but living a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah. I think it was at that, look, people who manage their weight deal with their weight issues. If you've got weight issues, it's a lifetime struggle with it. So for me, it was, this was the last time I knew that at the, age I was entering into, it was like, it's now or never, really. I don't want to get older and sicker. I can't stop getting older. At least I could look good while I do it, So that was sort of the thing, I thought, man, older people who are thin, they look pretty hot still. So I want to go after that thing. And then I also wanted to feel good. And I realized I'd hit my limit. So I just decided, there's no turning back, and there's no, let's try this for 6 months and bail on it. It's like, let's just do this. And I had to take notice of all of the things that I enjoy in life in the way of food. I never ate bad. I'm not a closet eater of Doritos at midnight. That has never been me. So giving up junk food was not something I had to do. I just literally had to cut back everything I eat. And if you think about it, I'm almost half the size I was, and I probably cut back everything I eat by 50%. So I also sped up my exercise, and I really started to believe in myself. I thought, that's just me. I mean, I'm the only one who can get this done. Nobody can do this for me. So that became the commitment, and as everything in life, that it was a centrifugal force. The more you do something, the more you do something. And that's the only hint I can give people. Just, you've got to keep going. Even if it feels like at the beginning it's sluggish and slow, just don't stop.
Well, bravo to you. You've done a beautiful job and continue to. I really
thank you. Yeah,
admire you for the fortitude that you have and focus and in being healthy.
I appreciate that. And again, really meant a lot to me to have you just kind of in my corner every time I turned around with some nice note from you and a phone call from you. And I'm so grateful. And honestly, this has been the best thing I have ever done in my life, is get this hip, organized and sorted. Because honestly, with the situation I was living with for 50 years, I didn't understand that physical anatomy is so pleasant. Walking is so pleasant. I just had restrictions from a hip disease. So I didn't know what I was missing. And now I don't plan to miss a single day. I'm walking every day now.
Beautiful. As we're getting towards the end of the conversation, I want to get more personal, going down this road. What inspires you?
Oh man, that's a big question, as simple as it is. I'm very inspired by the area I live in. I feel like I have a secret weapon, that every day I get to see this Monterey Bay. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I make time, and during COVID, I take the long way to go get groceries in my car, and I drive down to Big Sur, or I drive out to Carmel Valley to get a coffee. I could get here in town, but I just want to see it. It feels like mother to me. It feels like, it just fills my soul. So that's the first thing. People, my friends inspire me, conversations every day inspire me. My job, listening to music. I'm a big fan of entertainment. I like everyone else, I do enjoy a nice show to binge on. I try to select wisely because I know time is limited and I don't want to just mindlessly scroll through TV. So I get inspired by really well-written television shows, movies. Of course, music is very high up on the list of inspiration. Now, with the new hip, physical movement inspires me. Have you noticed that? You get out, and I know you do your beach walking. You come back from that, you might be a little tired, but my God, the energy you get a few minutes later is outrageous. And I'm also very inspired by foods that I prepare and eat. And I don't really have time to be doing any of this cooking that I'm doing, but I have made time because I find just getting my hands in the mix with it is so exciting. Like to take favorite recipes, and remix them without the oils and with all the fats in them. Keep some of the good fats, but all the stuff we don't need, and to get sugar out of it. I get really inspired by creating, and especially if I can come up with a recipe that actually tastes good, man, that's outrageous.
What do you think has changed the most in art and in the entertainment business during your career? And also, what's remained the same?
I think the music business and the entertainment business in general has become way more independent. And I like that. And I think that it literally spun on its heels. There was a consortium, or as you called, a secret club of people that were running the show, running every show. Like there was the TV side of it, the movie side of it, the music side of it, and it was an impenetrable wall to get in. And I think we've just shaken it up like crazy over the last 2 decades on every level. I mean, who would have thought, put a few people on an island and let's see how they survive, and we'll call that a TV show. What?
Right.
And next thing you know, we're now watching Housewives, and we're watching, strange folks in New Jersey doing crazy things. And, and not to say I'm not saying that's my entertainment, but it really shook up the industry. And same with music. Like the way people are getting in now is, it's much more open. The gates have swung open. So I like that. And where things stay the same is that we continue to get in our way after a certain period of time where we rinse and repeat. And, you see somebody go, well, if that show's a hit, let's make a show just like it. If that song's a hit, let's make a song just like it. And I think I don't know where that comes from in us. Sometimes I think there are people that are like paying homage to a song or homage to a series, and they want to do the same thing because of that. But let's keep our originality going, because that's what the last 2 decades have shown, that originality and independence is fierce right now.
I had a guitar teacher when I was in college, when I first started focusing on studying jazz, and he said that the hardest thing was not to be able to imitate other artists, which is a great way of learning how to do things, but to eventually find your own voice. And you have found your own voice for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you for saying that. And I agree with that guitar teacher. And I don't think that comes overnight. And that's something that when we're young and all fired up and we think we have something to say, I don't think we really have anything to say until, you live a little bit, and that's not to say, there are not there's not 20 somethings out there that are not offering up information, that I could benefit from. I mean, as a matter of fact, Justin Lee Schultz just told me, he's 13 years old, that his philosophy for life is if he's not having fun, he doesn't want to do it. I mean, that took me 50 years to understand that.
Well, he's clearly having fun if you watch his videos. Yeah, absolutely.
He's having fun. So, I mean, I think when we get our voice, it's not always at the same time as each other, but it does come. It just doesn't come when it doesn't always come when you think it's going to. So, we hang on. And I had a guy tell me once in radio, less is more. And because when I was 19 or 20, I just wanted to talk too much on the radio, and the people just wanted to hear the music. So my big advice was less is more, and until you have more to say, pretty much, Right.
There's form without content. You've got to live life and embrace life to have something to say. Otherwise, I mean, I guess that's what draws me to an artist. Painters, dancers, actors. It's not just the technique, but it's the point of view.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well said.
I'm curious how you balance your life. How do you balance art, family, and business? Are you good at that? Or is that, I know I struggle every day with all the things that there are to do when I get up in the morning and the things that I want to accomplish and still exercise being in my marriage and be a friend to my friends. And are you disciplined?
I've become more structured over time, and I that was a very hard thing to do because I enjoyed open-ended living. I could stay up as late as I wanted to get things done, and and I wouldn't say I wasn't as disciplined as I needed to be, but then the last 4 years of just trying to get my body, to cooperate with me so that I can be here for a while on this planet without medications, and struggling. I've come to learn structure. I would say structure more than discipline, because I think self-discipline or I think willpower only goes so far, but structure is what allows us to create and be the people we are, without too much confinement, So no, I'm not amazing at juggling everything with family. I try. I think I do well. I mean, I don't have a big family. I don't have children of my own, but my sister has a lot of children and grandchildren, and I touch base with them as often as I can. I would have loved to have been a little closer to them while they were growing up, but we live, they're in San Diego, I'm in Monterey. But it's hard. It's hard to juggle the family thing with the work thing when you're pioneering something or writing something or creating something. I mean, you're constantly in your head with it, but I have a very supportive team. I think I'm very blessed that way. I have a supportive team of people that I actually would call friends. So while we're working, we're having fun, we're laughing and we're creating. And then my clients are, often great associates to be around. So, I do my best, Terry. I do my best. And it is hard to get it all in, like especially this part of sleeping well, eating well, exercising well, just looking out after ourselves. That's the tough part, because for years I didn't, hence where the weight creeps in or the lack of exercise creeps in, because you're doing everything else. So I think it's a big balancing act, and I don't know how everybody else does it, but I just give it my best every day. And I try to get up a little. I saw some great quote the other day, wake up a little earlier, laugh a little more often, this really fun list of things. And I thought, yeah, that's a good thing to aspire towards. And I do try. I try to go to bed a little earlier, wake up a little earlier, spend a little more time with people. I try to remember to text. Sometimes if I feel like I'm missing somebody, I'll send them a little Starbucks gift card or something, But I do my best.
Yeah, boy, that's what I strive for as well, to do my best every day in everything that I do. So Sandy, boy, I have so much more that I would want to ask you, but I want to get to my closing questions that I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
Since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally? And also, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Making it, it's a different outlook now. I can, life is a funny thing. You never really feel older, even though you are older chronologically. So making it to a 17-year-old was being on the radio in Los Angeles. That would have been making it, But making it to me now is, I guess, living a really balanced life, like we were just discussing, with, with your colleagues, people that you admire, who get what you do, who know they can call you for, information or for ideas. I guess to me, making it is that I'm somebody's resource for something greater than me. I really feel like that would be making it, that I'm connected to artists in a way that's part of the bigger picture. And I don't remember any of your other questions. That's
okay. I'll remind you of that in a moment. But that speaks to something that I really get from you when I hear you interview other people, is it's so much of it is about your personal friendships and relationships with a lot of the artists that you have developed. It's not just a business thing. It's personal.
It is, yeah. I've always said that, and you know how that saying goes, it's not personal, it's business. I've always just flipped it. It's not business, it's personal.
It's personal.
Exactly.
The second part of the question was, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Yes, I can. Consistency is everything, consistency. And that means following up with people. That means networking. That means, just reminding people gently, kindly, you're here, and stay true to who you are, be who you are, and hone your craft. That would be number 2. And number 3, do what you say you're going to do.
Beautiful. I'm just going to marinate on that for a moment. Do what you say you're going to do. Yeah.
I think that's key.
Oh, I so agree. I so agree. Follow up is such seems to be an unknown skill for so many people that I know. It starts with good intentions.
Yeah, and that is a deep, deep thing right there that you just hit on. That is a deep thing, because that has to do with self-esteem.
I didn't really think of it that way. I thought, sometimes I view it as just a lack of focus, but I think you just nailed it. It's a lack of
I think it's
self-esteem
hard to
or self-love. Yeah. Well, it is.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up. It is. It's hard because you feel like you're putting yourself out. You're like, I might be interrupting them. They might not have time for me. I mean, all the things we tell ourselves in our head, you just have to push those away and realize that, all the chatter.
The chatter.
Yeah, someone's waiting for you. That's all you have to keep remembering. Someone's waiting for you.
Right.
So keep reaching out.
My final question to you is, at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, another good one. I would say, hold on, it's coming.
That's great.
I was really impatient.
Are you still?
No, not so much anymore. No, I can genuinely answer that. No, I do believe everything that we need will come to us, with focus and this not giving up thing. And it does come. And, and I love, the quote from the Stones song still resonates with me. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might just find you get what you need. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. Sandy, since our show's completely unedited, I'd like to give the final word to you. Is there anything that on your mind or your heart that you want to share with our listeners?
I'm just so grateful that you invited me to do this with you, Terry. Thank you. And I'm a big fan of yours. I think this is a really important mission that you've got going on here. I think it's necessary. I love that you're going inside the music and inside the art and talking to people about real things that matter. And if this is another blessing of COVID where we can connect, I'm grateful to you for, making the effort to do it. And, nothing more to say. I hope this is to be continued between you and I.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm grateful to you. We have both been practicing our craft in our careers for a long time and supporting each other from a distance. And it's been really my joy to be able to support you more closely and directly.
Well, thank you. And together you and I are a couple of still very youthful hipsters with our genetically modified bodies. So we'll have to go for a walk sometime soon when this thing's all over.
Oh, I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Sandy Shore, thank you so much for spending the time with me. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining Sandy and I. And go to smoothjazz.com to get yourself educated and enjoy some great music, and also see what you can, if you're an artist, to learn more about the business that you're in. And if you're a fan, go there to listen to our music. And everybody stay safe. We appreciate you. Thanks.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.